The fight for Irish freedom. Ordinary men, ordinary women, in extraordinary circumstances, taking on the might of the British Empire. With few weapons and little training, the task was daunting. But against all odds, they prevailed. 100 years later, we set out to capture the lives of those remarkable people before they're forgotten. And by following in their footsteps, we try to understand the sacrifices and dangers they willingly faced to make Ireland free. West Cork, January 1919. In a rural house beyond Dunmanway, the 3rd Cork Brigade is formed. Better known as the West Cork Brigade, they would take part in the most intense fighting of the War of Independence. By the end of 1920, these young men formed into flying columns, and led by General Tom Barry, they waged a guerrilla war against the British Empire that had devastating consequences on all sides. 100 years on, ordinary young men from all over West Cork are being given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to journey into the past and spend a week living as a flying column. To get there, they'll have to prove their worth both mentally and physically to these 4 military veterans.
It's a fantastic opportunity, for people from this locality to get a sense of what those guys went through, to get a sense of, Tom Barry, the leader, the challenges that he faced, and to really bring history alive.
There's no doubt about it, the flying column operation activity was a lot more intense here than in any other part of the country. It'll be interesting to see what guys in today's generation can learn from what the people did 100 years ago, and this is the starting point for that.
We want somebody who will reflect what their forefathers were before them. So they were resourceful, tough, physically and mentally.
They weren't full-time soldiers, and that was a huge challenge for them, to have guys who weren't as skilled with weapons, as skilled at shooting, as skilled in tactics as their enemy was.
We're looking to step back nearly 100 years into history, so that a lot of the locations that will be used for the training and for the reenactments will be the exact locations that were used by Tom Barry and his flying column in their operations in West Cork.
I think it's a great way to actually reflect and commemorate what would have happened 100 years ago, and to, I suppose, compare and contrast with how far we've come as a nation.
The opportunity that's presented to each and every individual here is massive. It's a chance to step back through the threshold of history, but the challenge that comes with that opportunity is going to be a mental one and a physical one. Tom Barry handpicked his flying column in 1920 because he couldn't afford to have any weak links in that column. We're not looking for the fastest or the fittest or the strongest. We're looking for guys with the mental toughness to endure different challenges, and we're also looking for guys with the proper motivation to be here.
So what is militarily possible or probable when you take certain people, like the raw recruits that we're going to be dealing with over the next number of days, give them some form of a basic training, and then see, can we bring them up to a desired end state, i.e. an effective, efficient fighting force.
If this was back in 1920, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind I would have been up there when any of this recruiting was being done. I have an ability to push myself. I want to push myself. I want to see what you have in store. I want to see what kind of training that the boys really did go through. I want to see, am I man enough? Am I able? I genuinely think I am.
First thing, I think I'm the right age. I'm 20 years old, so I think that'd be around the right age that back in the day the men would have been. Like my great-grandfather, Patrick Sexton, he was involved in the IRA during the War of Independence, Civil War.
You're not going to get a lad here who's going to go sick or go down with injuries or complain. I would consider it an honour, given the esteem that I would hold Tom Barry and his men in.
I wouldn't be the best GA player at home, but I always make the team because the drive in me is just the heart.
you ought to be a privilege to star in something like this because these things don't come around too often. And being honest with Tom Barry, if you're a West Corkman, if he isn't a hero of yours, there's something very wrong with you, you know what I mean?
Keep going.
I've always been saying to my better half, I was born in the wrong century. I've always wanted an opportunity to go back in time to see if I'm up to the challenge of being in a flying column.
It's good that there's such a strong field out there. The challenge for us really though is to, get the right 12 together and to ensure that we're not leaving somebody good behind. Again, we are sort of splitting hairs between people. It's that close.
Of all the British forces stationed in Ireland during the War of Independence, none was more notorious than the Essex Regiment, stationed in Bandit, West Cork. Today, 6 history students from the University of Essex arrive in Cork, keen to understand a period of Irish history that is still out of bounds in the British education system.
Irish history in general isn't covered particularly well in British schools. I know a little bit about the Black and Tans, and I didn't know actually that the Essex Regiment was stationed down here until we got the opportunity to come.
I know that the British influence wasn't so great. It was really bad for people, but I just don't know why, and I would like to learn why.
I'd just like to see things from both sides and try and get a more accurate picture of what actually happened.
Of the 60+ volunteers who took part in the trials, 12 young men have been selected. Today is day 1 of their week's training.
Over the moon. Absolutely delighted. I suppose when I was younger I was a little bit of an outcast because I'm dark-skinned, and I think as I grew up I wanted to prove that I have as much claim to Ireland as any man.
It means a lot to me personally. It just means a lot to experience this and see exactly what they've done. 100 years ago, it's a great honour.
Congratulations to everybody who qualified to be a member of the Flying Column through the selection process. But this is where the hard work starts. What I want you to do, first of all, place all of your phones and your watches on the table in front of you. What you're involved in here is a unique opportunity to step back in time, literally in the footsteps of Tom Barry's flying column of the West Cork Brigade 100 years ago.
The world that these men are entering will be as close as possible to the West Cork of 100 years ago.
What we're initially going to do is build a situational awareness picture of the scenario that existed in West Cork in the summer and the autumn of 1920.
In any assessment, we've got to look at the strength and the enemy and who you're potentially dealing with. In West Cork at this time, there are a number of what we would call battlefield actors. First off, there's the RIC, the Royal Irish Constabulary. At this stage, mid to late 1920, morale is low. People are leaving the organisation, as a result of which they need to be bolstered. Enter the Black and Tans, generally ex-servicemen from the First World War, brought in to support the Royal Irish Constabulary, generally encountered in static guard positions. Enter the Auxiliary Division of the Royal Irish Constabulary, ex-officers from the First World War, all on £1 sterling a day, at this time a king's ransom. They're there to pack a heavy punch. You need to avoid those unless you can meet them on your own terms. By the end of this training week, this weapon will have become an extension of yourself. Clear your action, pull the trigger, put your safety back on. Every time you pick up a weapon, you carry out that function. Put your magazines back on. Close your bolt. You're only going to have a handful of ammunition. The volunteers themselves literally had a magazine full, between 5 and 10 rounds. In an ambush situation, they generally hit the enemy hard, very, very quickly, because they didn't have the ammunition hang around. So each round is crucial.
Keen to get a local perspective on Irish history, the students journey to a part of the Irish countryside that was outside of British control 100 years ago.
Well, welcome. You made it in one piece, which isn't necessarily something that all the British visitors to this part of the world did maybe 100 years ago, but that's a separate story. You're at the start of a long journey of discovery, and I think you're going to have an awful lot of fun. This was one of the HQs that the IRA used in this area. This was pure, what might term, bandit country. I mean, this was an area that was basically beyond British control for a variety of different reasons. The calibre of the individuals who were involved.
The kind of IRA infantrymen that would be stationed here, living in this house, what kind of background were they from?
Obviously, in a place like this, people are working on a farm. In some cases, sometimes you might have a small local village where you would have people who would be sons of shopkeepers and things like this. Physically very, very robust. There were many who figured that the fight could not be won. I mean, you are taking on the biggest empire the world has ever known. But Britain arguably was never stronger than in 1919, 2021. And here, the smallest, weakest, arguably the most backward part of the United Kingdom is saying to London, we want out and we will get out. We have a minuscule number of weapons, we have very small numbers of fighters, but we will do this.
Everything we're going to do in this training week has a purpose. And the purpose is to bring you from the raw recruit that you currently are up to something that we hopefully might be able to put into an engagement. When we give an instruction or we give an order, that you guys carry it out straight away without question. So I want each volunteer to put their right hand, like so, behind the trigger guard. Put the weapon out with your right arm in front of you and keep it horizontal. Like that. It should be difficult. Keep it up. Keep it out. Lock out the arm. Stop bending. Okay, back to the at ease position. The reality is that you've got to be aware of the weight of that weapon. Get to know that you control this weapon and not the weapon controlling you.
At the outbreak of the First World War, John Redmond, leader of the Irish Parliamentary Party, offered Britain full support in the war effort. His calculation was that this show of solidarity would eventually usher in Home Rule in Ireland. But the unprecedented brutality of the trenches quickly changed public opinion.
The sentiment within Catholic Ireland was moving very rapidly against the First World War, but it had to be channeled into a certain direction, and that's where the Easter 1916 Rising is so significant, because it creates the concept of an independent republic. So between 1917 and 1918, the Republicans started to become, in effect, a dominant force in Ireland and set their sights at not just some sort of limited autonomy within the United Kingdom, but full-blown, complete sovereign independence. And it's on foot of that that the IRA say, well, okay, if it's okay for the British to fight for Belgian independence from Germany, on what basis can the Irish be denied their right to fight for their independence?
Hey. So, hey, do three, hey, do three, hey. Good, we're getting there. Gosra, Gosra, ara! But we're probably faced with that same challenge that Barry would have faced. You're looking for people with potential, you're looking for quick learners, you're looking for people who are aware, you want to see inquiring minds. They're ultimately the section leaders, and ultimately one that might become the column commander itself.
These are ordinary men, and that's what we have in front of us today, is a bunch of ordinary men all picked from different parts of West Cork, which is, you know, how I grew up and how I heard the stories is how I believe it really happened.
Simple men, like, you know, just going about their day, like, and they took on a big task, like, and they did it to the best of their ability, so that's what we're going to try to do now.
The students' next stop is Toridine, the site of the first major engagement between Tom Barry's flying column and the 1st Essex Regiment.
So we've just come here today to learn a little bit about the Toridine ambush. We understand that it was one of the first skirmishes by the 3rd Brigade. So
right.
we just wondered if you could tell us a little bit about what happened.
All you folks are from Essex.
Yep.
Any one of you have a grandfather or anything like that in the British Army in Ireland that time? No. Okay, that's grand. Because I'm not going to be too kind to them.
So would you say it's fair to say that the Essex Regiment were the first agitators and
Oh, yes.
the IRA were just retaliating?
Yes, the Essex were scoundrels.
Okay.
And I say that politely. I could say worse.
Yeah.
West Cork was a real rebel area. They wanted at all costs, in particular in West Cork, to get the British the hell out of here. So they had an idea that this would be a good place for an ambush. They had scouts at the outer perimeter of either side in case the British came from one or the other side. Just where the steel gate is now, you had a wooden gate and you had a pillar at either side. They had a rope tied to the gate, and when the lorry just came within view, they pulled the rope and it opened the gate. You had 5 guys with rifles kneeling and you had 5 guys with rifles standing, and there was normally 15 in the lorry, and out of the 15, 5 of them were shot dead. A number of them were wounded, and the IRA gave them bandages to fix up the ones that were wounded. So, you know, they weren't, as they've been accused many the time, of killing wounded people and this, that and the other. No, they didn't.
They showed them some mercy.
Yes, yes, which wasn't shown to dozens and dozens of IRA people in West Cork and all over Ireland.
What would have been the immediate aftermath of the Toridine ambush? Was there any repercussions immediately?
Oh yes, that night, along with their friends, the Black and Tans, they laid waste to Bandit town.
I think the Essex Regiment was sort of like loose cannons. It didn't seem like they had any kind of like strong moral leadership at all going on. So I would say it's hardly surprising that this kind of thing happened, but it's still shocking all the same.
With the first phase of their training complete, the volunteers move off on their first cross-country march. It's a route that was regularly used by Tom Barry and his flying column.
That was your first tactical movement from the training camp to this specific location, on road and across open ground. Okay, and overall, as a column, as a section, did very well. Every man was tuned in. Everybody knew their job. For today's move, we knew we were in a secure area, but as we go on in our training, we will be going into areas that are not secure and not safe, and that's where we need to bring it up another level again. Everybody understand? This location that we've come to here is Clogach Graveyard. This is where Charlie Hurley, the officer commanding the 3rd West Cork Brigade, was buried in March 1921. For nearly all volunteers in the flying column, Tom Barry was their hero. But for Tom Barry, his hero was Charlie Hurley.
The students continue to take the road less travelled on their journey of learning. Here in Barrett's Pub, Killeedy, a former IRA safehouse, they meet with families who have a living link to Tom Barry and the flying column.
I'm very proud of this photo. So here's Tom Barry with my grandmother. We knew her as Granny Barrett, but he knew her as Kitty. And they were great friends. So it's very personal. You can see they're deep in thought. And having a good old chat, wondering what they were talking about. But even in his book, Guerrilla War Days in Ireland, he spoke about the people behind the scenes, you know, the safe houses, the generosity, and he called them splendid people, because I think without them, they had very little support, but they had support from ourselves and the neighbourhood, which was great. You know, so it's a lovely, lovely photograph, and we treasure that.
We do, indeed.
Yeah.
And later years, then Tom used to come in here, and I was old enough to be behind the bar at that stage, and he'd come in the door, and he was he was a very tall character of a man, you know, and he'd just go straight for the kitchen. And first when he used to come, I was, who's this fella like? You don't go up to our kitchen, that's a private area. So he'd say, I'm going up to the parlour.
Yeah.
And I'd say, but this parlour? We called it the front room. So it was the parlour to him, because that's where he used to go and have chats with my grandmother. So
our
yeah,
father was in awe of him. And I was only 8, I can remember, I was 8 at the time, around that time, and he was the one person that came into our home that gave huge authority, huge respect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were so young, we didn't realise the importance
of him at that time.
He was very, very well respected by my dad.
Yeah. So how did Tom Barry know your granny?
They were starting a training camp, because the British were becoming very active. So Charlie Hurley decided that he needed someone to head the training camp, and they met Tom Barry.
Charlie Hurley was a friend of my grandmother's originally, and then they met here.
So did the British know that this was a safe house at the time?
I often wonder how they so-called got away with it. Like, we have heard stories that there was armoured cars and tanks, and the place was going to be blown up at 1 or 2 different times. But whether that really happened or not, they had to have known.
So how did your grandmother get involved in running the safe house?
Granny was a very strong-willed person, and I presume the fact that Granda was very involved. You know, behind every strong man there's a strong woman, and I've no doubt that the women of West Cork were tremendous. Like, you know, and this is the year that we're celebrating women, when in fact they were there years ago. You know, come them on. Tom Barry's own wife, but our granny was a very, very strong woman.
She was a nurse always. Also, she trained in England, and she came back here then as a nurse. A lot of the wounded were brought here because of her qualifications, you know. Say up here now, the way down to our kitchen long ago, there was a lot of blood on the ground. And the soldiers came in and they said, gosh, what's all this blood doing here? So Granny said, sure, we were killing chickens there this morning.
Yeah.
You know, no, so that's why the blood is there. So they believed her, you know. Yeah.
After the march there, it's kind of an emotional moment, I suppose, in one sense. Charlie Hurley's kind of a forgotten hero, I suppose, with the big names like Tom Barry and Mick Collins. And it was nice that we went up there, I think. And it was nice that, I suppose, he was recognised in a kind of a poignant, nice way, you know?
I suppose just talking to a few lads on the way back there as GA people, you know, we go to see GA matches in Bandit, and it's named Charlie Hurley Park. But apart from that, we weren't really that conscious of what else the man achieved in his lifetime. We just wanted to bring him into people's consciousness and show people that there was more than just Tom Barry.
I think for the guys in the column here, bringing them to the grave created a very strong link with what happened. It's a very good example of the leadership that was available within the Irish rebel movement in 1920, 1921. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the standard of the group, and the cohesion is quite surprising in such a short period of time. As the days go on for the rest of the week, this is going to be tightened down every single day. So the leader will be expected to make more informed decisions. The column will be expected to react quicker and better to the scenarios that we show them. And the level of risk that they will face in the scenario will increase as the week goes on.
It's the morning after the column's first night sleeping under canvas.
Gasra, Gasra, Ara! Gasra, Shasik, Rosh! Okay, weapon up on the right-hand side at 45 degrees now.
Started at 10 o'clock, there was 2 fellas on until 12, and then there was 2 more on for 2 more hours, and 2 more and 2 more until 7:30 this morning, so it worked well.
There's a few noises as well. You're kind of alert, like, because we're expecting something to happen as well, like, because they've put us in the mindset that something might happen. Like, you're thinking, where's your gun, where's your clothes, you know, you want to have all that ready.
For the most part, we were just strolling around having a look to see what was around. We went up the hill, down the hill. Plenty of snoring, plenty of farting. Somebody said there was a helicopter, but I think it was just snoring, to be honest.
Umpraig, Adam. When we're finished our training camp here, we will then be going to a forward operating base where the level of danger and the threat from your crown or occupation forces, as it would have been 100 years ago, are greatly increased. We will be ramping up the intensity of the training during the day so that they're fully aware of the level of danger that they're going into in the next 24 hours.
What kind of terrain would you imagine we would like to have in order to conduct an ambush operation against an enemy? High ground. Why?
Easier to shoot down. Shooting down is easier.
You pose a very small target firing from high because you can lie down. So all they'll see is a head and the weapon. Okay, so you pose a very small target. You also have better surveillance of the ground around you, don't you? If you could find this piece of terrain on the ground to ambush in, it's gold. Because not only are you elevated, once you block or put a barrier on the road, it makes it very difficult for them to escape away from you or to attack into you. The enemy is going to have a very hard job to climb that ground to get to your ambushing force, which means that you then have the flexibility and the freedom of movement to end your ambush when you want to and pull out, safe in the knowledge that they're not in pursuit. So how are we likely to move into our ambush site?
On foot.
On foot. Okay, it's the most difficult one to track. It's probably the only method we have available considering the country that we want to conduct our operations on. So if I was to nominate you as ambush commander, you're now moving in to this site, this piece of ground. What pieces of terrain do you want to use and why?
First of all, I'd bring my men down along this side, all of them. I'd put a blockade over here. I'd have men hidden in the trees and half my men over here. I'd put the blockade across the river so they'd only see it when they come around the corner. I tell the men here after the blockade, they've placed it, to come back around to this position here, and as soon as they got in to this choking point, I push down another barrier over here. So they're blocked in from here and from here, and then I'd have my men lay down fire from here.
Okay. I mean, your use of the principles of stopping your convoy, picking up on a choke point, using your barriers, condensing the fighting force that you have and using them to attack the target, that's all good.
If you were to build a barricade, would you do that under nightfall as well?
If you were to build a physical barricade, it would have to be done at night, because if it's done during the previous day, it'll be reported.
Yeah.
Surely the Tans were aware of the possibility of an ambush. So did they have a tactic that, like, they wouldn't drive together, that they'd split up, that they'd send out a scout as such to clear the road to see if it was okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good question. These are very broad principles. The decisions will be made by the commander on the day, and there will be a lot of factors feeding into why you make certain choices. Okay? Okay. Any further questions? Okay, on your feet. Team leader, take them away.
Keen to discover the oral history that was handed down from the War of Independence, the Essex students travelled deep into the West Cork countryside to meet those with a living link to Tom Barry's flying column. Back in 1920, Mort and Michael O'Sullivan's family were heavily involved with the West Cork Brigade.
Very welcome. It's nice to see Essex people here again, and especially as you're not bringing any weapons or anything like that. So please come in. Yeah.
Thank you. So thank you ever so much for having us in your house. Have you lived here or hereabouts your entire lives?
We lived here all our lives, and the family, the O'Sullivan family, have been here since the mid-1690s. The family were very involved in the volunteers. My Uncle John, my Uncle Pat, and my father, Charlie Sullivan, he was the farmer here, and because of that, he was the least person involved. But he was the paymaster.
Yeah.
He paid for all the
people who came here and stayed here.
Got their wages,
well, there was nobody wages, but all the food that had to be bought for all these people. At one occasion, my aunt Cathy O'Sullivan, who was very involved too, said that she prepared meals for 60 people. I mean, we couldn't fit in 6 people here now, hardly.
Yeah.
But in those days, she was able to feed 60 people before an attempted ambush at Clashinime, which is a couple of miles away.
So what was the involvement of the house, and have you found anything in the grounds or in the house from the time?
There were dumps on the farm here for the few paltry weapons that the whole brigade had. At one stage, it is said that there was 31 rifles in dumps in this townland, in our neighbours, in our own farm here and in our neighbours' farm.
How do you both feel now about the IRA, thinking back to your relatives and the volunteers as a whole? How do you remember them?
We look on them as freedom fighters, just like you in Britain are free people with your own government and system of government. That's the way I would look at them anyway.
They were very brave people, you know, to take on, you know, the British Empire. You could say maybe was extreme, was naive, but it was certainly ambitious.
It's been a real privilege to have them tell us those stories and to put them on film, to be preserved. These guys are the last of their family, and and many others like them. And they said that it was all passed down orally to them through family and relations and things like that. So to now have it put down permanently, to keep a record of it, I think is really, really important from a historical perspective.
They heard these stories from their family and from just growing up in the area, and they're still here and they're still telling those stories. I think it's really important that we listen to those stories.
With all the houses, it's really interesting to hear how much of a hub they were for the movement of soldiers and things, and also how important the women were in running these households, feeding all of those people, and also like passing all the information back and forth, from household to household to household. In a lot of conflict, people always underplay the role that women take in them, but for this in particular, it just seems like the operation wouldn't have been able to survive without them. They were integral to it.
Okay, the next phase of our training, we're looking at increasing your awareness and your skills when moving in an operational area.
This is now an active patrol. Okay, so the threat has increased. So it's not necessarily that there might be an expectation that you're going to be hit. There's a possibility, and a strong one, that you're going to be hit. If there is a shot, that means somebody knows that you're there. So there's a drill: dash, down, crawl, observe, sights, fire. You dash, so you just get out of it. You get into the growth. Down, because he'll have seen where you went. Crawl through it, then look up to see where they are and return fire. And you get one opportunity to get out of an ambush. So you're the section commander. Yeah. You're going to be located central. Now you're taking over.
All right, okay. Liam, so you can go front, Evan behind them, Stephen take up the back, so Declan, and you come and me in the middle, I suppose.
Section off track. Get up and slowly advance, but keep off the track.
The basic reaction was good. Okay, somebody spotted something they didn't like, gave you the signal, you were off the road. You're in command. You're going to win this firefight through these guys and how you position them and how you direct them.
In Courtmacsherry, Alex and Tom meet Dermot Begley, son of legendary brigade member Flor Begley.
Can you tell me anything about your family's experiences with members of the Essex Regiment?
The Essex were renowned. They did what seemed to be the British thinking at the time, where the natives were concerned, whether they were Irish or whatever, Indian particularly, and they terrorised them and suppressed them. Percival, General A.E. Percival. It's difficult for any of us here to talk about Percival in any sort of a light but a monster, because that's exactly what he was. There are so many incidents that he was responsible for. He was known to drive along in convoy and challenge his company to get that man over there, shoot that man over there, a farmer working in a field or whatever. He was a thundering scut, and that's all he was. It was he started burning the houses of the IRA sympathisers and IRA families. They used to raid my father's house, and they would wreck it every time. And I remember my aunt from my young days, and back in the 40s, and she was like a little rabbit. If a pin dropped to frighten her, and her hands were always fiddling because of what she went through with them.
So what was your connection to the War of Independence?
So I started researching a local woman, her name was Nancy White. She joined the Common Man in 1920. There was only 10 members. She was just an ordinary member, and in the beginning she was only running dispatches between the local captain and the commandant in Clonakilty. But as time came on, she started doing first aid, and she would collect money after mass. She would provide food and accommodation for soldiers and for local members of the IRA.
So did the community know what these girls and these women were doing, or was it quite secretive?
They probably knew to a certain extent of what they were up to. I'm not sure if they knew the extent of what they were doing. They did an enormous amount of work. There were some women who were providing up to 80 meals a week at certain stages. And they were having to find enough food, enough clothing. They had to provide for them, wash for them, and get them back up on their feet. If they needed first aid, they needed to do that.
Was it dangerous?
I guess some women took more chances because in the beginning there weren't lady searchers, so women were able to carry arms more readily than the men were, and they used that as a cover a lot. Eventually the women were called upon to carry arms.
What were the common repercussions for women that were caught?
Sometimes they were assaulted.
So did a lot of women speak about their experience in the war after it finished?
No, women typically didn't speak ever about it. It was totally unrecorded. A lot of the families now would have IRA medals, and they'd all belong to the men. And for the women, it's totally unrecorded. And it's only with the release of the military pension records that it's coming to light.
It's interesting to me how the only acknowledgement we get of the women's history is often through military records or from pension documents and these very official male-dominated documentation. It's not necessarily about the women writing things down, because I guess it would have been dangerous in this climate that they were in.
Common Man, they never, in my opinion, outside of Dublin, they never got the credit that they should have got. They were unbelievable. There was a lady in Bandit in the post office, May Toomey was her name. She used to intercept the mail. She'd intercept anything for the barracks. And she'd read it, and if it contained something that the lads needed to know, she'd take it and she'd send it out in the second post. Now, she was exceptional because she was putting her life at stake. And on one occasion in particular, 2 of her colleagues had been arrested and taken to the barracks in Bandit. But on one occasion, the door burst open, and who should come in but Major Percival. He knew there was a leak somewhere, but he didn't know what the leak was, but he got them all together and threatened their lives if he found out who the leak was and whatnot. It was made to me.
Okay, gentlemen, for the next stage of your training, we're going to move from this camp. It's going to be about a 2.5-hour walk to our next camp. The security bubble that we enjoyed yesterday will not be as prevalent today. We're going to skirt just north of Kilbrittain, where there's an RIC station. We're going to cross 4 primary routes. So you're going to have to up your game a little bit, pay much more attention to your patrolling drills, to your use of cover and your use of terrain and your route selection.
When you've stepped into this yard here, you've stepped straight back 100 years into history. This is O'Brien's farm, Clonbuig, Kilbrittain. Tom Barry used this farmyard, its outbuildings, and its adjoining lands as a training base for the West Cork Flying Column. In this shed behind me, this is where the volunteers slept and were billeted. This is where you will be sleeping and billeting during our training phase here. This is where you had Charlie Hurley, Tom Barry, and all the commanders of the various companies. Before that, you had Michael Collins in this very house, involved in meetings with the local brigade officers. So right in this very spot, we have walked back into history. Column Commander, from here, you will take command of the section, fall them out, and prepare them for emergency evacuation drills. Any questions?
No.
Take over.
Column, turn to your left. Fall out.
Having all this history right on my doorstep, it's too close not to get involved in it. It's a privilege, really, to be taking these footsteps and to honour these men for what they did for us. Okay, lads, most likely point of attack for my enemy will come from this side here, in the east. If it does, our sentries will be posted out in an outer ring. We'll come in, they'll alert us. I want you to get up, get your ammunition, get your gun, get your boots, and get out the door as fast as you can. I'm going to walk you up here to a rally point. It'll be our first rally point. After that, we'll have a second rally point. I'll tell you the second rally point when we get to the first. Everybody understand?
Understood. Follow.
I thought Stephen delivered it very well. He's very confident. We trust him as a team leader today. We think he's bang on with most of his ideas. We trust him 100%.
With the clothes and with the landscape and the sentry duty, I do feel like I'm slipping out of the present to an extent and back into the past, into the lad's shoes, for sure.
What made this part of West Cork such a hotbed of IRA activity? A mile down the road from the volunteers, the students meet local historians Dennis O'Brien and Con McCarthy to find out.
On the night of the 16th of February 1921, Major Percival led an Essex Regiment patrol from Kinsale westwards towards here as they were searching the area of Clonbuig for local volunteers. They came upon a road, Kilgobbin Crossroads, where there was trenching going on. The road was blocked, and because of that, they had to abandon their lorries and continue the rest of the journey here west on foot. At the same time, there was about 9 or 10 local volunteers here. They were preparing an ambush. They had gone inside the ditch and waited there for the night. And then at around the same time, the Essex Regiment had come upon them suddenly outside the ditch, opposite volunteers, and they opened fire rapidly. 3 volunteers were shot and killed instantly. Volunteer John McGrath was shot through the head. Volunteer Cornelius McCarthy was shot in the eye, and volunteer Timothy Connolly was also shot in the head. The rest of the volunteers then fled, 2 in this direction, and the rest of them headed south through the fields here. Sergeant Jeremiah O'Neill was headed southeast on this field and was shot by the Essex. He bled to death near where that tree is standing there now.
I suppose when you look at the aftermath of this particular incident here, where these 4 volunteers lost their lives, that was a major shock to the people of the parish. It galvanised the people of the parish, and they became more entrenched, more involved in the War of Independence, more supportive of the struggle for Irish freedom. In 21, this was one of the most active parishes in the country in the War of Independence. In fact, there was 81 volunteers here. That meant that there were a lot of people here in the parish had to support them. They had to provide food for them, provide safe houses for them, and provide information, which was vitally important.
You guys are probably like the third or fourth people we've met to mention the Cumann na Ban and their involvement. It sounds like whether it was through the passing of information, medical training, feeding, or even just defiance, that the women may have saved as many lives as any of the men involved.
The reality was that there was a war going on. The volunteers, they were being backed up daily by the Cumann na Ban. They were also being backed up by the ordinary population as well.
I think what really struck me this morning was the age of the people who were killed. The 4 of the names on there were younger than I am. It's just like these are kind of still kids that are being involved in fighting for their freedom, and it just illustrates how important it all was and still is now.
It's not nice to hear what the British did and you know, the brutality that they inflicted upon the Irish people, and it's horrible to hear the stories that the Irish people felt they needed to, you know, they needed to fight back as well. It's pretty heavy stuff. Yeah.
Oral history is very important. I mean, it's coming straight from the source itself. And when you've recorded something either with a camera or a dictaphone, you've got all the inflections of the person speaking. You know exactly what they mean when they're saying it, and you're able to ask the questions there and then. Like, you can't interrogate a textbook. So it's great to speak to actual people who have lived through it and have living connections.
On O'Brien's farm, the men of the flying column are shown their sleeping quarters.
Okay, lads, first of all, well done today on a great day's training. Okay, you put in a really good shift and you're really working as a team now at this stage. Okay. Everything we've asked of you, you've done, and you're taking on more and more of the onus yourselves. It's great to see, okay? Just take a look around the room. They've deliberately kept this building as it was 100 years ago because they're well aware of the significance of this building and the importance it played in the revolution, okay? So you guys now have the privilege of being able to sleep in this building tonight, okay? The first group of people who will do so for 100 years. Okay, so it's a really, really privileged position to be in. So just cast yourselves back, I suppose, to the mindset and the mood of the column 100 years ago. Men of your own age, your own backgrounds, the fears, the excitement, the hopes they had for the future of the country they were fighting for.
We knew when we were making the move from the training camp, cross-country, that the threat level and the danger from enemy forces was going to increase dramatically. And I think what we saw tonight was the importance of having a plan, rehearsing it, and ensuring that the sentries that are on duty do their job. Tomorrow, we go another step in that preparation for an ambush operation. Understood?
Understood.
Fall out.
Whilst we honour in song and in story the memories of Pearse and MacBride, whose names are illumined in glory with martyrs that long since have died. Forget not the boys of Kilmichael, those brave boys so gallant and true, who fought 'neath the green flag of Erin and conquered the red, white and blue. So here's to the boys of Kilmichael, who feared not the ice and the foe. The day that they marched into battle, they bade all the black and tans low. Forget not the boys of Kilmichael, those brave boys so gallant and true, who fought 'neath the green flag of Erin and conquered the red, white and blue. Forget not the boys of Kilmichael, those brave boys so gallant and true, who fought 'neath the green flag of Erin and conquered the red, white and blue.
Come on, Joe. Go on.